Hey guys, welcome back to another impressions video on a game that I actually beat a couple like weeks or even months ago. I just been very slow to for whatever reason make this impressions video for XCOM Chimera Squad. This is on PC, and I believe that's the only system where this game is out. I actually bought this on day one on Steam, on the Steam platform. They had a great deal when it came out. It was like half off. And I want to say it was like $10 because the actual full price of the game is actually like it has a budget, quote unquote, I guess price point, which is great because this game is actually, even though it's not a full-fledged XCOM mainline game, this is considered a spin-off. It's definitely not XCOM 3, but for the budget, I guess, price point, I think this is a very meaty game. In fact, I put almost 40 hours on my playthrough to complete this game, and I have to say I'm pretty happy. I guess my background with the XCOM series is not very extensive. For those of you that have been following my channel, you guys will know that I've sung the praises for XCOM Enemy Unknown, and out of all the versions, I played the PlayStation 3 version, which is riddled with performance issues. But despite playing that game on the worst platform possible, I had a great time with Enemy Unknown on the PS3. But for whatever reason, I never went back to any other XCOM games. I did dabble into other strategy games that are similar to XCOM, but I figured, Chimera Squad was the perfect, excuse for me to get back in the XCOM series, considering this is kind of like a light version of the mainline XCOM game. So my choice was between Gears Tactics, which also came out in 2020, and XCOM Chimera Squad. So I was like, which of the two I'm gonna pick, and I went with Chimera Squad, and I'm pretty happy. I did enjoy the game quite a bit, despite being a quote-unquote spin-off game. So this is developed by Firaxis, and in fact, I think most of the development team that worked on XCOM 2 is part of the development of Chimera Squad. So a lot of talented people that worked in this game. And the story, again, I haven't played XCOM 2, but supposedly this picks up right after the events of XCOM 2, where Earth is finally liberated from the the government alien forces. And now it's a transition period where humans and aliens are trying to coexist. So basically, Chimera Squad consists of a, hybrid police unit comprised of both humans and aliens. And that's kind of like the charm of the game, because each character has their own, personality, and it's something that I really enjoyed compared to the XCOM game that I played previously, where you had to create your own characters, and they're, in a way, they're kind of like disposable, if you will. I know that kind of sounds, it may sound mean or something like that, but that was the nature of the other XCOM games, where in this one, your characters cannot, from what I remember, your characters cannot die in the game. You can change the frequency if you lose them after each encounter, and then they come back and so forth. But that's the appeal of, or the biggest difference on Chimera Squad, that you have like a solid team of of people that you can choose from, and of course every character has their own personality and traits and skills that you can hone and level up to have a comprehensive squad, depending on the mission. But yeah, the story, again, going back to the story, touching base on that, is just the coexistence of humans and aliens, and you're basically playing the police role in City 31, which is now riddled with leftover crazy gangs and different types of crime organizations that you have to deal with. And in fact, something happens earlier in the game. I'm not going to spoil anything, but that leads you to kind of like branch out and investigate three different factions of crime organizations. And I guess I made the wrong choice. I didn't use a guide or anything for this game, but I decided to go after the cult. There's this crime organization that is kind of like a religious cult, and supposedly that's a no-no when you play this game. And I could tell it was very hard to actually to actually defeat the final boss of that crime organization at the end. I managed to do it in like my second try. So it was fun reading the impressions of other people, like in Reddit and whatnot. Some people even had to restart the game. And that's something that I'm gonna touch upon on the gameplay. Like even if you play this game on normal, it can be very hard if you don't know what you're doing. But needless to say, there's 3 crime organizations. You're gonna choose which ones you want to go after. But the gist of the game is that you have to go after all 3 regardless. And once you, defeat and find out more about the 3 organizations, then you face the final boss, if you will, and that's how the game ends. So the story, I mean, it's pretty solid actually, and I like how the story was told in kind of like a comic book kind of like style, with a very unique art style in between, every mission and so forth, and some fairly good, voice acting is not, it's not something great, but it definitely helped the story. So I guess I can transition into the soundtrack of the game. Pretty decent soundtrack selection, and again, the voice acting was appropriate. It wasn't anything great or anything like that, but it definitely added to the characters of the different members that you can have in Chimera's squad. So the sound department, I guess it was fairly solid. No complaints in there. In terms of graphics, the game, obviously it depends on how souped up your PC is, but I think no matter what, this game is not supposed to be a looker. The game does have some fairly above average graphics, 3D environments that are, in my particular case, there were some performance issues that I believe are present even if you have like pretty good rigs. As you guys know, I have like a medium range gaming laptop, so it was not the best showcasing for this game for the most part, but nevertheless, this game is not gonna wow you in any shape or form, even if you have a powerful computer. But the environments were appropriate, a little bit repetitive, if I have to say. But again, keep in mind this is a spin-off game. So a lot of reused assets from the XCOM series, and a lot of reused environments and textures and whatnot. But for the most part, I thought it was an average showing when it came to the graphics and environments. What I did like about the graphics in this game, again, it's kind of like hand-drawn style for the kind of like the story cutscenes, and also like the art style for the squad members. I thought it was pretty unique and pretty fun to look at. And now I guess the final point is obviously the gameplay, which is where everything shines in the XCOM games. These are staple strategy games that this game follows to a certain point. The strategy elements, you're going to have your classic elements such as oversight, overwatch, moving your character. Sometimes you can move farther, but then you lose your attack turn, if you will. You have your typical Overwatch abilities. Reloading takes turns sometimes depending on the character and whatnot. So all in that is fairly similar to the other XCOM games, but the one thing that where this game kind of varies is again the fact that you have a fixed squad of characters that you can pick and choose from. I also enjoyed the new mechanic that they added, which is the breaching mechanic, which allows you to kind of set a strategy, preliminary strategy on how you're gonna breach certain buildings, and of course you have to be careful and tactful in a way, or tactical in a way that you have your best man approach or enter the buildings and attack the enemies at a certain order and whatnot. So that added another layer of tactical element, and while it wasn't a critical element in my opinion, it's a nice bonus to have in this game. Another, I guess, new element is how the enemy turns are kind of like combined with your own turns, and which is kind of weird. It reminded me of the Legend of Heroes games, the Trails in the Sky games, which I was playing last year, where you have your turn and then the enemy turn, and then you have two of your players' turns and things like that. So I'm not really sure what dictates, I guess, the speed of the characters, like who goes first. I couldn't tell that, but you do have a bar on the side of the screen that kind of tells you who's doing what in what turn you are. But I really enjoyed it because overall, I think XCOM Chimera Squad is kind of like a bite-sized XCOM experience, but at the same time a full-fledged experience in the sense that it took me 40 hours, almost 40 hours. Although I do have to admit I did a lot of the side missions that in order to level up characters and train my characters in between missions, you can allow to do some research. You can send some characters to the health clinic if they're injured and things like that. So you do have to have a wide variety of characters. You have to be on top of your research, on top of obtaining money. And I guess the gist of this game is that if anarchy rises within the different districts in the city, then it's game over. Personally, playing this on normal, I was never in danger of reaching the anarchy level. But I did have a lot of early, I guess, upgrades to my special forces. I think it's called special forces that allowed you to keep the level of, I guess, anarchy down in your city. So a lot of micromanagement in the game, not only during the missions, which is goes without saying, this is an XCOM game, but what happens in between the missions, you do have to have a lot of micromanagement on who from your team you're putting into doing some research, who on your team are resting and getting their health back. So there's a lot of decisions to be made in between missions that I personally enjoyed, but I do have to say towards the end it was getting a little bit repetitive. But the key is obviously to unlock characters as soon as possible and train them evenly. Try to use them, I guess, evenly. Don't try to have favorites too much, because you don't want to level certain characters or over level certain characters, because the way that it works, you unlock skills. The more you use a character, the more skills you can unlock, and they become very useful. As a final note, the characters being fixed, I actually liked that. I think it gave the game a lot of personality. My personal favorites were Torque, which is a snake, and I was using her ability to bind enemies throughout the levels. Once you get it strong enough, you can bind even huge enemies, like tank enemies, which becomes very useful. And then as long as you have the enemy bound, you can have damage, but she can also, being a snake, she can spit poison in certain areas and things like that. So she was pretty helpful in my team. I always had Terminal, which is the kind of like the medic. And she has this very useful feature where you can send her drone to heal characters and whatnot. And again, she becomes a very key member of your team by being the healer, obviously. I also liked, I think Axiom, I think it was called, the tank character, the frog type looking guy. He was very useful, very powerful in close encounters. Equip him with a good shotgun, and he becomes a pretty good sort of tank aggressive character for you. But the one that I really enjoyed use was Verge. He's this alien with mental and psychic powers. He can mind control enemies, and it was very, very useful in order to disrupt the enemy's turns and attacks. He was definitely a character that I enjoyed using. That was kind of like my core, Verge, using his mental, I guess, abilities. Torque, the snake, using her poison and binding abilities. The tank character, I think it was called Axiom or something like that. And then, Terminal being the healer. But there's also, each character has their unique abilities. There's Cheer Up, for example. He has a huge shield, and you can shield other enemies or teammates, which is a very useful thing to use. But other than that, every character has their own special abilities and skills that are very, very useful during combat, and that's where it boils down. Finding out what characters are better to use and things like that. It goes without saying, this is an XCOM game, where a 90 plus effective, shot becomes a miss. This game was chock full of those memes for me as well. No surprises here. The RNG, random generated, number doesn't seem to work. The harder the missions, for whatever reason, the higher the percentage, the lower it seems. So it was kind of funny battling through those things. But I got through it. It was a bit frustrating. Normal difficulties definitely feels like hard in this game, so just be mindful of that. But other than that, I had a great time with XCOM Chimera Squad. I highly recommend it to you guys if you have Steam. It's kind of like a budget title, a very fun tactical game. So with that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all later. Take it easy.